So this is the final product. I took the propane oven out and replaced it with an air fryer. Put a nice, rather expensive, because that's what my wife wanted and I'm a smart man, so I have my ideas and then I do what my wife wants. But we replaced it with a butcher block top, and I'll lift that up and kind of show you some of the details here. All right, now as most of you know, RVs are all built differently, even same model numbers. People just kind of throw things together. I believe that the propane oven had 3 different kinds of screws and they were different lengths. The countertop, you can see right here, had to be notched out a little bit to fit the oven. Same on this side. So you don't have any kind of nice square surfaces. It's very ugly underneath that part right there. It looks all scratched up. It looks like they just took an oscillating blade and chopped it up so they could get the oven in. So even though it looks pretty good right now, it was going to be rather difficult to get, especially a piece of pretty much its 1/4 inch countertop to fit in there, because while the countertop looks real thick right there, underneath that white trim, it's actually very thin, and there's plywood under there. So for me, this was the easiest way to do it. I'm not concerned about the trim in the corners because, number one, it's in the back. You're never going to see it because this heavy thing is on top of it. And number two, that panel back there is actually removable because there's stuff back there that you want to be able to get to down the road. And I'll show that to you as soon as we come back. All right, we're back. So here's my removable panel. As you can see, Velcro. Not only it's sticky Velcro, it's staples into there because that will come off. If you have dinette booze and you've ever experienced this, after a little while, you keep pulling them up, and even if they screw them down, it rips right off the screw head. Found that out before. So just stapled it across the back, put a little block down here so that it's a stopper in the back. Another piece of Velcro back here. This one actually stays on. It's got really good contact, so I didn't have to staple that in. So all this is about a 1/4 inch of plywood. Might be, actually that's a 1/2 inch, I believe. And this is just some really thin barnwood boards on there. Obviously, this whole oven was built lightweight for a reason, so we don't want to add too much weight. But let me get this out of here. All right, so this piece here is just straight from Lowe's. It's just a real thin piece of kind of like there's a rubber backing on it. It's a vinyl tile kind of thing. I'm hoping that it works just fine. Air fryers don't tend to get so hot on the bottom. Obviously, heat rises, which is part of the reason I'm making this video, because this is going to be an enclosed cabinet with the butcher block on top and then all the sides surrounded. It's going to be a lot of heat in here. And that always worries me, whether it's fire or just anything kind of warping, which we obviously don't want. We want to maintain the integrity of the original space so that if I ever go to sell this, I can always put the propane oven right back in. Quite frankly, I hate the propane ovens. I never use the oven part. I find the burners a real pain in the ass to use too, and that's even more of a fire hazard. I like the electric little cooktops. Matter of fact, that's what I use, and I'm probably going to get a double cooktop to replace that. However, because it's electric, and you know, you see I've got I love this ice maker. It makes the cubed ice like Sonic. Oh, great. But I don't have plugs on my walls. The plugs, there's one up there, right there, and there's one over here in the kitchen. And that's it. So every time you have an electrical appliance, it's a rat's nest of wires on the countertop. So I kind of wanted to avoid that. So because the air fryer has a plug, we're going to have to run electrical somehow. Now, I've run electrical. My old motorhome, I ran 50 amp service, and then I installed 2 of the counter pop-up plugs. If you've ever seen those, they're round and and you pull them right out of the counter. They have outlets on them. They're great. Recommend them. But in this one, I didn't want to run. I've already run one outlet to a bay underneath a storage bay so I could have a separate freezer because these freezers aren't huge. And we took about a 2-month trip in the summer, and I didn't want to have to cook a lot of food on the go. So I ran a separate freezer. We took a lot of frozen stuff. And I didn't feel like running another electrical outlet. It's not a far run. There's the breaker box. There's the oven. I just didn't feel like ripping things apart to do that. So my other option, if you look in here, see that hole? That whole box there is my outdoor TV. I never use my outdoor TV. Why bother having an outdoor TV if you never use it? That outdoor TV has a plug in it. So I figured it's easier. Just unplug the outdoor TV. I'm gonna run one of these into that hole. Notice it has 2 USB outlets. And it's got this thing, and this thing clamps it on between the wood and the ring. Clamps it on really tight, and then I can run my air fryer. Once I drill some holes in the back piece, I can run my air fryer cord through there, and you'll never see it. I've literally never used an outdoor TV in RV. Maybe I used it once, and I've had 4 different RVs. Anyway, and then this has USB slots. Now, the good thing is I have something coming in, hasn't arrived yet. I ordered all this stuff off of Amazon, by the way. It is a double USB switch. So it has 2 of these USB ports on it and an on-off switch so that I can install 2 of these fans. Here's the one, and they're USB fans. And I was originally going to take the 12-volt wire that came from the stove, which is right here. This was hooked up to the knobs, the knob lights on the stove. I was originally going to take this wire and connect it to a more powerful USB fan. However, I was then going to have to run a separate switch to turn it on and off because you don't want this fan being run all the time. You also want to be able to turn it on and off easily. So I found a switch that has the 2 USB ports. I can plug these in, turn the fans on whenever I'm using the oven, and then just turn it off. These should blow enough air. They'll end up going in like that. I'll probably mount them to the bottom of the butcher block. And then they suck air in from here and blow it out. And if I mount them, I figure if I mount them somewhere around here, they'll be able to take all the hot air out of this cabinet and keep it cool enough that I don't have to worry. And here's another reason you want to have, you don't want to put anything in your RV, in my opinion, that you can't take out rather easily. So most of this stuff is just screwed in with very small screws, or it's nailed in to the original junk balsa wood that they give you, which is this here was an original piece. Everything on the side here was original, and they do a horrible job building these. Not gonna lie, they are put together with these rather long staples, and half the time they don't go into a piece of wood, so they just put in about 6 or 7, and just everything looks like it's just chopped up. And it's all done for weight. I get it, weight savings, but when it becomes a safety issue, that's a little different. So I'll try to show you how thin these pieces of balsa wood are. So, okay, so here's the bottom connection of where the oven was. Now that 2x4 there, I built that. So I put some 2x4s and some framing under here to really, I know it's a little hard to see, but there's a better picture. Just basically a little square that I built out of some scrap wood that I had around. But I could stand on this and it's not going to go anywhere. Previously, it was just held in with some little tiny nails to these pieces of wood on the side. And you can see how thin that balsa wood is. It really doesn't support weight. So if you're going to do a project like this, you do have to put some supports underneath because travel trailers are not meant to hold weight. The counter was essentially holding the weight of the propane oven. Anyway, obviously propane. So there was a propane line, which I just capped off with a flared nut. Tested it with my bubbly water mixture to make sure it wasn't leaking. I'm leaving that intact. That, as I said, in case I ever have to sell this, I can always put this back in. I know some people go underneath and remove the propane line down where it is starts under the camper, but I didn't want to do that. So, and this is the reason, as I said, look at all this wiring. You do not want to put anything in here that you can't remove, because you have to get to stuff. And there's this run down here. That there is there for the slide out mechanism. So that's another thing. You don't want to cover that, nail into that. You have to be pretty careful. The slide out, as I said, this is a double floor. Right about here is a double floor. You do not want to nail through the top piece of 1/2-inch plywood, or should I say OSB board, and then go into the bottom piece and nail your slide together. You do not want that. So you have to kind of plan a little bit around this. This 12-volt wire right here is heading back here. This actually operates the under cabinet LED lighting strips, which, once again, something I never use, but they're right under there. There's, you can see the wire. So if you ever had to disconnect something also, you could always use or tap off that 12-volt wire. So anyway, a lot of this was wood I had lying around, but it is strong as hell now. And then my wife wanted this little lip on the front of the beadboard because it fits in here and keeps it from moving side to side. And then I'm going to use some L brackets, much like they would secure a counter at your house, and attach them from the side to the bottom of the butcher block to keep it from moving forward. I have lots of dogs, and I cannot afford my dogs getting hurt. So I will take you on a trip outside. And there's the gate that I made to keep my dogs in. And here's the outdoor TV. There's the hole. I'm actually gonna have to enlarge it a little bit to fit that outlet in there. But there's the plug. And thanks to Thor, most of these plugs, if they don't need 2 outlets, you only get 1 outlet. So where in a house you would get a duplex receptacle, here you get the 1 outlet you need. So you can't leave your TV plugged in. Not a big deal. But that's how short the run is to the oven. All right, so headed back in. All right, so here are some things I'm going to use. I've got a hot air gun. I got some shrink wrap tubing connectors and a crimping gun. That's going to be all for my 12-volt there, so it's easy to connect. And you know, as I said, most of this stuff is kind of plug and play. I'm not going to show you the entire process of me doing it. I'll come back and show you the final result. It's really not going to be that hard. The hardest thing is, as I said, making sure that this counter is secure enough that you can put a good bit of weight. I'm pushing as hard as I can, and that's not going anywhere. The weight in there, not that the air fryers are super heavy, but I don't want to take any chances with all the bouncing these things do that something's going to loosen up and kerplunk, and then I have a bigger problem. So I think that's about it for now. I'll bring you back when I've got most of the job complete, and then kind of walk you through what I did. All right, so everything's hooked up. I got the 2 USB computer fans there. Do a switch so I can turn them on and off. And you can hear them blowing. And it's enough airflow to get all that hot air from the back and just bring it out front. I can actually feel it blowing on me right now from here. And they're relatively quiet. I think they're about 38 decibels. So I am going to put the cutting board back on, and I'm going to make sure that these wires aren't touching the top of the air fryer, obviously. I'm going to move this kind of under the cutting board so it's easy to reach the switch, and secure those wires up, and then pretty much the installation of this is all done. Looking pretty good.